Welcome to my channel, where we embark on a journey through time to explore the most peculiar and unconventional practices of ancient societies. But before we delve into this captivating adventure, don't forget to show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more intriguing explorations into the past. Number 1. Gladiator Fights, Ancient Rome. Gladiator fights were a form of public entertainment and spectacle in ancient Rome that involved trained fighters, known as gladiators, engaging in combat against each other or against wild animals in arenas known as amphitheaters. These fights were held for various occasions, including religious festivals, public celebrations, and the funeral games of notable individuals. Gladiator contests were immensely popular and attracted large crowds, serving as a means of both entertainment and political propaganda. Gladiators came from diverse backgrounds, including slaves, prisoners of war, and free men seeking fame and fortune. They were trained in specialized gladiator schools, where they learned various fighting techniques and combat skills. The outcome of these contests was often brutal and deadly, with gladiators fighting to the death or until one combatant was incapacitated. Number 2. Sati, India. Sati, also known as Sati, was an ancient Hindu practice in India, now outlawed, in which a widow would self-immolate on her husband's funeral pyre or commit suicide shortly after his death. The practice was believed to demonstrate the widow's ultimate devotion and loyalty to her deceased husband, and was associated with cultural beliefs surrounding honor, purity, and the ideal of a woman's role in society. Sati was most prevalent in certain regions of India, particularly during the medieval and early modern periods, but it existed in various forms throughout the country's history. While some argue that it was a voluntary act of devotion, others suggest that it was often coerced or enforced by societal pressures and religious norms. Number 3. Tooth filing, Indonesia. Tooth filing is a traditional practice in Bali, Indonesia, known as potong gigi in the Balinese language. It is a rite of passage performed on adolescents, typically between the ages of 12 and 16, to mark the transition from childhood to adulthood. During this ceremony, the sharp edges of the canines and sometimes other teeth are filed down to create a smoother and flatter surface. Tooth filing holds significant cultural and spiritual significance in Balinese society. It is believed that the filing of teeth symbolizes the removal of negative traits and impurities, preparing the individual for adulthood and marriage. Additionally, it is thought to protect the individual from the influence of evil spirits and safeguard their well-being. Number 4. Self-mutilation, various cultures. Self-mutilation, also known as self-harm or self-injury, is a practice observed in various cultures throughout history and in modern times. It involves deliberately inflicting physical harm on oneself as a way of coping with emotional pain, stress, or distress. While self-mutilation is a complex behavior with psychological underpinnings, in certain cultural and religious contexts, it has also been practiced as a form of devotion, penance, or initiation. In some religious and spiritual traditions, self-mutilation is seen as a way of demonstrating devotion, commitment, or seeking favor from deities or higher powers. This may involve practices like cutting, piercing, or branding. However, self-mutilation can also be associated with mental health issues and emotional struggles, serving as a coping mechanism to deal with overwhelming emotions or feelings of emptiness. Number 5. Trial by ordeal, medieval Europe. Trial by ordeal was a medieval judicial practice in Europe used to determine guilt or innocence in legal proceedings. It was based on the belief that divine intervention would ensure a just outcome. There were different types of ordeals, such as the ordeal by fire, where the accused had to carry a red-hot iron or walk barefoot over hot coals. Another form was the ordeal by water, where the accused was thrown into a body of water, and their ability to float or sink was taken as a sign of innocence or guilt. The belief in trial by ordeal was rooted in the idea that God would protect the innocent and punish the guilty, making it a form of divine judgment. While the practice was intended to be a fair means of determining guilt or innocence, it often led to severe injuries or even death of the accused, as the ordeals were physically demanding and dangerous. Number 6. Odor Parties, Ancient Rome. Odor parties, also known as convivium around, were a unique form of entertainment and social gatherings held in ancient Rome. These parties involved guests engaging in competitions to identify and distinguish various scents and perfumes. Perfumes and fragrances were an essential part of Roman culture, and these parties provided a platform for guests to showcase their olfactory discernment and knowledge of different scents. During an odor party, guests would be presented with a series of scent-filled containers, such as vases or jars, and they would have to identify the scent or guess the source of the fragrance. The scents could be derived from a wide range of natural and synthetic sources, including flowers, herbs, spices, and animal-based substances. Number 7. Live burials. Various cultures. Live burials, also known as premature burials or vivispulture, refer to the horrifying practice of burying individuals while they are still alive. This gruesome and unsettling practice has been reported in various cultures throughout history, often as a form of human sacrifice, punishment, or to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. In some ancient civilizations, live burials were performed as sacrifices to appease gods or spirits, with victims chosen from specific groups, such as prisoners of war or members of marginalized communities. Live burials have also been associated with burial customs and beliefs related to the afterlife. In certain cultures, it was believed that burying a living person alongside the deceased would assist them in the afterlife, or serve as a protective measure to prevent the spirit from wandering or haunting the living. Number 8. Corpse Orators, China. In ancient China, corpse orators, also known as minqi, were professional mourners hired to recite eulogies and deliver poetic verses at funerals. Their role was to pay tribute to the deceased, recount their virtues and achievements, and console the grieving family. The practice of hiring corpse orators was believed to ensure a dignified farewell for the departed soul and guide them to the afterlife with the appropriate words and rituals. Corpse orators played a significant cultural and social role in Chinese funerary customs, which placed great importance on honoring the deceased and showing respect for the departed and their family. The orators were often skilled poets and speakers who were well-versed in traditional funeral rites and customs. Number 9. Skull binding, Mesoamerica. Skull binding, also known as cranial deformation, was a practice observed in various Mesoamerican cultures, including the Maya, the Inca, and the Aztec. The process involved shaping the skulls of infants to produce distinctive cranial shapes, often elongated or flattened. This practice was typically carried out during infancy, when the skull was still soft and malleable. Skull binding held significant cultural and social significance in these ancient societies. It was often associated with notions of beauty, social status, and religious symbolism. Number 10. Foot binding, China. Foot binding was a deeply ingrained practice in Chinese culture that lasted for over a millennium, starting in the 10th century and continuing until the early 20th century. The custom involved tightly binding the feet of young girls, typically between the ages of 4 and 9, to inhibit their growth and create tiny deformed feet known as lotus feet. This practice was considered a mark of beauty, femininity, and social status, and it was deeply ingrained in traditional Chinese society. The process of foot binding was excruciatingly painful and had severe and lifelong health consequences for the women who underwent it. We hope you were as fascinated by these historical customs as we were. If you found this journey intriguing, remember to show your appreciation by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and leaving your comments below.